St. Matthew's
military
offered
medical
Clara a fortune to sell
center
the
was
ranch.
overwhelmed. She hesitated.
After days of non-stop
the land held
emergencies,
memories of her late husband,
with ambulances arriving
but it had also
one
become
after
a safe haven for
another
Jacob
and
and
doctors
children.
racing
Jacob
crowded
encouraged her
hallways
to
to
make
save
whatever
lives.
decision brought
Among
her
the busy
peace.
staff was Emily
Never
Carter,
asking for anything in
a
return.
quiet trauma nurse in
Clara
her early
realized
30s
that the
who wore
ranch was
dark
no
navy blue scrubs,
longer just a
kept
piece
her
of
brown
land.
hair
It was
tied
a
in
home
a neat
where
bun,
broken
and never
lives
asked
had
for
begun to
recognition.
heal.
She
rejected
simply
the
focused
offer
on
and
her
instead invited
patients with
Jacob
calm
to become
confidence
her
that made
full-time ranch partner.
even the most experienced.
Together they expanded
Doctors trust her
the
judgment.
ranch into a place that
afternoon,
welcomed
the hospital
struggling
received a
families
highly
looking for a
confidential
fresh start.
patient under heavy military security.
Her name was Sarah Mitchell,
The younger sister of the legendary Navy SEAL Admiral James Mitchell. Only the hospital director, a 4-star general, and a handful of senior doctors knew her true identity because she had survived a carefully planned assassination attempt only hours earlier. Emily was assigned as Sarah's primary trauma nurse because of her remarkable ability to remain calm during life-threatening situations. Sarah was terrified, constantly looking toward the hospital door. Convinced the people who wanted her dead would return to finish what they had started, Emily gently checked her pulse, adjusted her IV, and smiled warmly before saying, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Those simple words eased Sarah's fear for the first time since the attack. Moments later, loud explosions echoed through the hospital as emergency alarms began flashing red. Armed gunmen forced their way into the emergency department, smashing glass doors and sending frightened doctors, nurses, and patients running for cover. Security officers tried to stop them, but the attackers fought their way deeper into the building while searching every room. Emily immediately realized Sarah was their target. Without panicking, she locked the hospital room, switched off the lights, moved Sarah behind reinforced medical cabinets, and quietly prepared emergency supplies in case someone was injured. Outside the room, heavy footsteps grew closer as the gunmen checked every door one by one. Sarah began trembling uncontrollably, but Emily gently held her hand and whispered, "No matter what happens today, I promise you're going home safely." Seconds later, the locked doors shook violently as someone tried to break inside. Emily slowly stepped in front of Sarah, placing herself between the frightened woman and the danger outside. She knew the next few moments could decide who lived and who died, yet her face remained completely calm as she prepared to protect her, patient with her own life. The reinforced hospital door burst open with a deafening crash as 2 armed gunmen rushed into the room, their weapons searching every corner. Sarah Mitchell froze in terror behind the medical cabinet, convinced her final moments had arrived. Emily Carter didn't hesitate for even a second. She stepped directly between the attackers and her frightened patient, raising her hands just enough to keep their attention focused on her. "She's just a patient," Emily said calmly. "Leave her out of this." The leader laughed and ordered Emily to move aside, but she refused. In one swift motion, he raised his pistol toward Sarah. Without thinking, Emily lunged forward and pushed Sarah to the floor. A loud gunshot echoed through the room. The bullet struck Emily high in the shoulder, sending her crashing against the wall. Blood soaked through her navy blue scrubs, but she forced herself back to her feet, ignoring the burning pain. "Run!" she shouted. Sarah crawled toward the emergency exit as Emily deliberately kept herself between the attackers and the woman she had sworn to protect. Hospital security officers exchanged gunfire with the intruders outside while terrified doctors and nurses helped evacuate patients through emergency corridors. The attackers tried to reach Sarah again, but Emily grabbed a stainless steel IV pole and knocked one gunman's weapon across the room before pushing a heavy medical cart into the second attacker, buying precious seconds for Sarah to escape. Moments later, elite Navy SEAL operators stormed the hospital alongside military police. Their leader secured the room while medics rushed to Emily's side. Just then, Admiral James Mitchell arrived, his face filled with fear as he found his sister safe but the quiet nurse lying, wounded on the floor. Sarah ran into her brother's arms, crying uncontrollably. "She saved me," Sarah sobbed. "She stood in front of me and took the bullet meant for me." The Admiral slowly turned toward Emily, who was still conscious despite losing blood. Kneeling beside her, he gently held her hand. Emily managed a weak smile and whispered, "I promised she'd go home safely." The Admiral lowered his head in silence, realizing that the quiet nurse nobody truly knew had risked everything to keep her promise. From that moment, everyone in the room understood. They had just witnessed an act of courage that would never be forgotten. Emily Carter was rushed into emergency surgery as the trauma team fought desperately to save her life. Outside the operating room, Admiral James Mitchell refused to leave the hallway, his uniform stained with his sister's tears as he silently watched the red emergency light. Above the operating theater, Sarah Mitchell sat beside him, unable to stop crying, replaying the moment Emily had stepped in front of the bullet. Without a second thought, hours passed before the lead surgeon finally walked out and quietly announced, "She's alive." The bullet narrowly missed her heart. Wave of relief swept through everyone gathered outside. Doctors, nurses, military officers, and Navy SEAL operators lowered their heads in gratitude. When Emily regained consciousness the following morning, she found the hospital room filled with flowers, cards, and grateful faces. She was surprised to see Admiral Mitchell standing beside her bed. Without saying a word, the legendary SEAL commander came to attention and gave Emily a perfect military salute. Every Navy SEAL in the room followed him, creating a moment of complete silence. "I've served my country for over 30 years, the Admiral said with emotion in his voice. "I've seen extraordinary bravery on the battlefield, but yesterday I witnessed something even greater. You risked your own life to save my sister, even though you had never met her before." Emily smiled weakly and replied, "She was my patient. That's all that mattered." The hospital director then revealed documents that shocked the entire staff. Emily Carter had once served as one of the military's most highly decorated combat trauma medics, earning numerous commendations for saving soldiers during classified missions before quietly retiring to become a civilian nurse. She had never spoken about her past because she believed every patient deserved equal care, regardless of who they were. The doctors who had worked beside her every day looked at one another in disbelief. Sarah gently held Emily's hand and whispered, "You didn't just save my life. You gave my family another future." News of Emily's courage spread across the country, and thousands of people sent messages thanking the quiet nurse who had taken a bullet to protect a stranger. Yet despite all the praise, Emily remained the same humble woman who simply smiled and asked the doctor, "How are the other patients doing?" At that moment, everyone realized her greatest strength was not her military training, it was her heart. 1 week later, St. Matthew's Military Medical Center held a special ceremony unlike anything in its history. Doctors, nurses, patients, military officers, Navy SEALs, and local families filled the hospital auditorium, all gathered to honor the quiet trauma nurse whose selfless courage had saved countless lives by protecting Admiral James Mitchell's sister. Emily Carter entered the room, wearing her simple navy blue scrubs with her arm still supported in a sling, never expecting the standing ovation that greeted her. As she walked toward the stage, every doctor, nurse, and patient rose to their feet, applauding with tears in their eyes. Admiral James Mitchell stepped forward, his voice filled with emotion as he addressed the audience. "On the battlefield, courage is expected," he said. But what Nurse Emily Carter did inside this hospital was extraordinary. She stood between an innocent woman and a bullet without a moment of hesitation. She didn't ask who my sister was, how important she was, or what reward she might receive. She simply chose to protect a life. The auditorium fell silent before erupting into thunderous applause once again. The Admiral then removed one of his own military challenge coins, a symbol of the highest respect among Navy SEALs, and placed it in Emily's hand. "This cannot repay what you did," he said, "but I hope it reminds you that you will always be part of our family." Sarah Mitchell embraced Emily with tears in her eyes and whispered, "You told me not to be afraid because you were there. I'll remember those words for the rest of my life." The hospital director then announced that Emily was being appointed Director of Emergency Trauma, Response and Advanced Nurse Training, recognizing not only her extraordinary bravery but also her compassion, leadership, and commitment to every patient she served. Although reporters waited outside and television cameras captured every moment, Emily remained humble. She thanked her fellow doctors, nurses, paramedics, and security officers, saying that saving lives was always a team effort and that no true hero ever stands alone. Months later, after making a full recovery, Emily returned to the same emergency department where she had risked everything. She quietly picked up another patient chart, smiled warmly at a frightened child arriving in the trauma unit, and gently said the same words that had changed Sarah's life. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." At that moment, everyone around her understood that true heroes are not defined by medals, uniforms, or fame. They are defined by the courage to put someone else's life before their own. The end.